Hi guys, Howzit? Welcome trek amol to my Afrikaans-speaking followers, Kia ora, to any Kiwi whānau that I have following, and welcome back to everyone else. So, today is the 3rd of December. We are a full 22 days from Christmas, but World Rugby gifted us with the pool selection early this morning. I think it happened at 3 a.m. my time. Yeah, 3 a.m. my time, and I did not get up early to watch it. I woke up about an hour ago, saw what we had, knew what we were going to do today, knew we were going to have to discuss this, and we will go ahead and get into it. Before we even get into it, though, I do want to say, you can go back in my history. I've been ultra critical of the draws. I've been ultra critical of them expanding the tournament. Now, you might be like, hey, fair weather. Hey, Keith, why are you critical about expanding? Don't you want the game to grow? Well, my biggest argument for not expanding the tournament is I just want to throw something up on the screen here. This is just a small sampling from the last 3 World Cups of some lopsided scorelines that we've had. And I could see the argument, at least from World Rugby, is that, we need the tournament to be a bit more competitive. Well, the problem is that how many World Cups has Romania qualified for? How many has Georgia qualified for? How many times have those teams made it out of their pool? Namibia, the United States. And if you want to go to the Tier 1 route, how many times has Italy made it out of their pool? Well, if you don't want to do the research, the answer is 0 times. Look, the fact of the matter is you can look at all these teams in this World Cup, and it's pretty much essentially always been the same group of teams that make it to the quarterfinal, make it to the semifinal, make it to the final. Fiji's never advanced beyond a quarterfinal. Tonga's never made a quarterfinal. Samoa's never advanced beyond a quarterfinal. Italy's never been, like I said. Fiji would probably be considered the most competitive Tier 2, but they are a Tier 1 nation now. None of these Tier 2 teams are super competitive. Yeah, Georgia might get an occasional upset here and there. Samoa the same. Tonga occasionally. But the reality is, when it comes to the World Cups, it's pretty much the same teams that always make the quarterfinal. And if you expand the tournament, we will now have a round of 16. Do I think it's going to change? No, I don't. No, I don't. I actually think this is going to be the easiest World Cup to pretty much predict through the pool rounds. So that's why I've been ultra critical of it. There is no more pool of death. There might be a few competitive pools, but there's no pool of death anymore. When we go through this list, you can pretty much figure out who's going to make it through in each pool. And with the expansion of a round of 16, there are going to be teams with 1 win that make it into the round of 16. 1. They'll win 1 game in their pool, and they'll make it to the round of 16. And I'll give my predictions as far as that goes, but let's go ahead and get into these pools. We'll go through them, say what they are, and then I'll kind of go through my little bit about each one that I think and give you my predictions. And kind of maybe even give some early predictions for how the tournament goes and some statements on what I think will be the issues with it. So we're going to go ahead and start off with the host nation making Pool A. And I was hoping for some excitement in the selection, but no, we're just going to get another Blood is Low Cup is what we'll get. New Zealand and Australia top out Pool A with Chile and Hong Kong, China, the other 2 qualifiers. Chile qualifying for their 2nd Rugby World Cup. Pool B, despite the jersey you guys see me wearing, I'm going to be very, very partial to my Pool B. But South Africa has drawn Italy, Georgia, and Romania. Pool C will consist of Argentina, Los Pumas, multiple semifinals at the Rugby World Cup, Fiji, Spain, and Canada. Pool D will consist of Ireland, Scotland, Uruguay, and Portugal. Another 6 nations pool, basically. Pool E will consist of France, Japan, the USA, and Samoa. And then, finally, Pool F will consist of England, Wales, Tonga, and Zimbabwe. So we're going to go ahead and go through each one of these pools. I kind of give my thoughts about it, and I can pretty much predict how the pool is going to play out. So we'll start out with Pool A, which will consist of New Zealand, Australia, Chile, and Hong Kong. So New Zealand will beat Australia, and then they will beat the absolute brakes off of Chile and Hong Kong, China. We're talking huge score lines, huge point differentials here. Australia will lose to New Zealand and then beat the crap out of Chile and Hong Kong. Do I think either of these two teams become those third place teams? I do not. I think the point differential will be much too high for Chile and Hong Kong. And even when they play each other, there just won't be enough to close the gap. So I see New Zealand and Australia qualifying for the round of 16. Then we get to Pool B. We've got South Africa, Italy, Georgia, and Romania. South Africa easily beats Italy, beats the brakes off of Georgia, beats the brakes off of Romania. Italy loses to South Africa, is somewhat competitive with Georgia, and beats the brakes off of Romania. Georgia will lose to Italy, South Africa, and beat Romania. I think Georgia has enough points differential. Georgia will be one of the third place teams qualifying for the round of 16. Moving on to Pool C, we have Argentina, Fiji, Spain, and Canada. Fiji and Argentina might be a bit of a competitive bout, but not competitive enough. So Argentina, I think, beats Fiji by a bit. Absolutely beats the brakes off of Spain and Canada. It's not even close. Fiji loses to Argentina, beats Spain and Canada with ease. Spain and Canada. That's going to be a little bit of a kicker right there. I want to say Canada gets the win. Do I think any third place team makes it out of this pool? Maybe, but I highly doubt it. Pool D will consist of Ireland, Scotland, Uruguay, and Portugal. Ireland easily beats Scotland, easily beats Uruguay by a lot, and beats Portugal by a lot. Scotland loses to Ireland, beats Uruguay and Portugal by a lot. Uruguay, I think, beats Portugal, and I do think Uruguay does make it to the round of 16. They'll probably be the last team in it. Next, we have Pool E. We have France, Japan, USA, and Samoa. France will beat the unholy crap out of every single one of these teams. Like, huge point differential. Japan will lose to France. Japan will struggle a bit against Samoa, but Japan gets through to the round of 16. USA... depending on what Samoa sends, if they do kind of fix up their financial issues, that kind of thing, USA will probably lose every single game. If not, I see USA getting a narrow victory over Samoa, losing to Japan and France by a lot. And honestly, I can see USA making it through. USA or Samoa makes it through to the round of 16. That's how bad I think it's going to be. And then finally, we have Pool F, England, Wales, Tonga, and Zimbabwe. England beats every single team with ease in this pool. Zimbabwe or Hong Kong, I think, might be the two teams that have the worst point differential. We're talking Namibia level point differential, Romania level. But England wins all three of their games with ease. I think Wales loses to England, but then beats Tonga and Zimbabwe. Tonga beats Zimbabwe, and maybe Tonga makes it through to the round of 16, just because I think they'll be able to get enough of a point differential over Zimbabwe to qualify for basically a third place slot in the round of 16. So there is no group of death here, folks. That's gone. That's done. You can pretty much look at all of these and know who's qualifying. New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Italy, Argentina, Fiji, Ireland, Scotland, France and Japan, and England and Wales. Now, I know a lot of people think, oh no, Wales is terrible right now. If you had given Wales Scotland's schedule for the Autumn Nations, they would have finished with the exact same result. They would have beat the brakes off the Tier 2 teams. We look at Wales as being so bad right now, but look at what Wales has to play. Wales doesn't get to play a bunch of Tier 2 teams all the time. They play Tier 1 talent because they're a Tier 1 nation. So compared to other Tier 1 nations, are they terrible? Yes. Compared to Tier 2 nations, they would beat the brakes off of most Tier 2 nations. That's how big the gap has become. You're not going to see any upsets in this World Cup. Chile is not beating Australia or New Zealand. Romania is not beating Italy or South Africa. Spain is not beating Argentina. Portugal is not going to beat Ireland or Scotland. The USA is not going to beat France or Japan. Zimbabwe is not going to beat England. I'm super critical of World Rugby in this because they're acting like this is supposed to make things more competitive. It's not. These are the least competitive pools that we've seen them throughout the history of Rugby World Cups. You can go back and find the pool of death from every year. Obviously, the last World Cup, it was painfully obvious what the group of death was. It was the one that had South Africa, Ireland, and Scotland in it. Because you knew one of those teams was not advancing. Ended up not being Scotland. They lost to Ireland and South Africa. This, you can still qualify. There's going to be teams that make it to the round of 16 that are 1 and 2. Just mathematically, it's going to happen. There's going to be a team that has 1 win in a pool that makes it to the round of 16. So the suspense is gone. You know that South Africa is going to beat every single one of those teams. You know France is going to beat England is going to beat every single one of those teams. There's no suspense anymore. Now, the downside that I see in all of this is in the pool in 2023, the Springboks had to take Scotland and Ireland real seriously. Obviously they lost to Ireland. But you had to really shore your shit together to play Scotland and Ireland. You tell me on here, where you see teams having to shore themselves up other than the team below you in the band. New Zealand will have to shore up against Australia. South Africa will have to shore up against Italy, barely. There's not going to be any real competition in this tournament until you make it to the quarterfinal. You could be playing, pardon my French, dog shit teams for the first 4 games. France will play dog shit teams for the first 3 games. 4 games, probably. South Africa is going to be playing dog shit teams for the first 3 games. 4 games, in reality. You're not going to be getting to a real stiff competition until you get to the quarterfinal. Now, there are teams that can do that. I mean, we saw, obviously, Scotland did real well against Tier 2 teams in the Autumn Nations, struggled against Tier 1 teams. So what does that show me? They make it to the quarterfinal and they go home. There's going to be teams that can do that, and there's going to be teams that can't. We saw the issue with Ireland in the 2023 Rugby World Cup. We bring it up all the time. They're quarterfinal exit specialists. And if you go back and you look and you realize what happened to Ireland in 2023, they never rotated out their squad. They used the same squad for every single game. And by the time they made it to the quarterfinal, they were spent. They were gassed. Do I see that happening in this one? No, I don't. But they've also not faced any real stiff competition. You could say Scotland is there, but Uruguay and Portugal, they're going to steamroll those guys. And the idea that, Chile, Hong Kong, Georgia, Romania, Spain, Canada, Tonga, Zimbabwe, USA, Samoa, Uruguay, Portugal, there could be an upset. I highly doubt it. Because the gap between Tier 1 and Tier 2 is not getting closer. They'll throw Fiji out there as like, oh, it got closer and look at Fiji. How did Fiji do in the Autumn Nations? I rest my case. The gap is not getting closer between Tier 1 and Tier 2. In 2018, the USA beat Scotland. In 2025, they got beat 85-0 by Scotland. Occasionally, you'll have Uruguay beating a Fiji. You'll occasionally have that, but Fiji was still a Tier 2 team at the time. But like a 2011 Tonga beating France, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen in this World Cup. You're not going to see USA upset France. No, you're not. USA beat Romania. The gap between Tier 1 and Tier 2 is not closing. And this right here is not going to help. One bit. Because it's so ultra predictable. If you're going to expand the tournament World Rugby, make sure that you have the talent to expand it. But when you've got teams that have qualified for every single Rugby World Cup and have never been farther than a pool round, they're not getting better. The teams at the top are getting better. The teams at the bottom are getting worse. Am I looking forward to 2027 Rugby World Cup? I think we all are. But at the end of the day, do I think World Rugby is doing the right thing? No, I don't. Do I think that this is the best way to go forward in all of this? No, I don't. I simply don't. I don't see it. I don't think that it creates a better competition. All I feel like is that World Rugby is lowering the bar. They're lowering the bar so teams can qualify. The United States failed to qualify in 2023, and shortly around that same time was when it was announced that they had been awarded the 2031 Rugby World Cup to be held here in the USA, and we have seen the US team get worse. Now, thankfully, they've got a top-end coach like Scott Lawrence, and he's got a plan. Moonshot 2031. Go look it up, folks. If you want a good chuckle, go look it up. But as long as World Rugby keeps lowering the bar, I don't expect any of them to get any more competitive. I just don't see it. Well, you guys let me know what you think in the comments section. We'll be back to talk again really soon. I hope everyone is safe wherever you're at. I hope the weather starts acting right here in Texas. It got real cold this weekend, wet, finally starting to warm up, but it is definitely the fall, winter season. As the folks in North Pretoria, it was a beautiful hailstorm you guys got there. That was pretty crazy looking. I thought it was all AI. No, it was the real deal. And yeah, we'll be back again real soon. Cheers, guys.